5 days after an electric Mercedes EQE caught fire in an underground car park in South Korea's Cheongdong, injuring nearly 24 people, destroying 140 cars and displacing almost 800 people from their homes. You can check my video on that just up there if you like. But 5 days after that, a Kia EV6 channeled its own inner towering inferno in South Chungcheong, gateway to South Korea's beautiful Gyeongdong. This EV6 blaze was, on balance, a bit less serious, but both fires, I feel, serve to highlight glaring deficiencies in the way that EVs are being rolled out around the world, including here in Australia, putting members of the public, i.e. you and your family, needlessly at risk. This kind of thing is, of course, coming soon to a car park near you. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au. New cars cheap, but Australia only. Website. Code. This EV6 fire did not involve anything like as much drama, damage or personal suffering, but it serves to highlight, to me at least, 6 critical design deficiencies either in EVs themselves or in terms of their integration into society around us, which will almost certainly claim quite a few lives over the next decade unless we do something urgently about them. And we're going to deep dive into them next. Today's video is brought to you by Olight, and I admit it, dude, hand on heart, I am a total Olight fanboy. I'm a fanboy because the product is awesome and the value is great. And it's even better now because there's a sale which starts tonight at 8 p.m, which would be the 14th of August, but it only runs until midnight on the 15th. So let us not be dillying or frickin' dallying on that. There's some specials which I'll get into right now. I'll try and get them nailed very quickly and get you back to the main video. And then I'm going to throw to a video I did last month which just explains all of the complexity of the Olight range and how to drill down into that and get to my favourites. So here we go. Warrior Nano. This thing is awesome because so compact. Nobody's going to inquire as to whether or not you are pleased to see them. You won't be able to feel it down there, but tail switch, boom, very bright, very practical under pressure, and it's got a switch on the barrel for, you know, the finer work around the campsite or something. Then there's the Arcfeld, which is on special as well this month. That's awesome because it's so slimline, right? You don't feel it in the pocket because it doesn't take up very much width, so to speak, right? Tail clip, bezel down, easy to draw. It's great, okay? Same sort of magnetic charging deal, which is standard for most Olights, and it's USB-A on the other side, so any USB-A outlet will work. And then there's this thing called a Seeker 4, which is very good for bushwalking and camping and things of that nature. It doesn't have the tactical, quote-unquote tactical tail switch, charges by USB-C, and from a presentation point of view, let us not forget that Father's Day is fast approaching. And an Olight is an excellent way to pretend you care and thus remain in the will. So the packaging is really good for Olight, right? They're all about the magnets. They got magnets for charging, they got magnets on the box, and the box is really high quality, and it comes with all kinds of stuff inside it that, you know, is really just packaging, but it feels like the quality product. It presents like the quality product because it is the quality product. It's freaking awesome, dude. And finally, and I can't say this too loud because number 6 is upstairs and she's going to hear, but O-Pen Pro. Not a bad Father's Day gift either. I mean, she's a graphic designer. As soon as she sees a nice pen, that's the last I see of it. Let's just put it that way. So, nice presentation, dude. It's a pen and a torch, and it's a 2-for-1. You also get the USB-C cable in there and a second refill. So it's hardly as if it's the poverty pack option also. And goodness me, does that look like a nice little unit or what? Because It is, and if only I could hold one in my hot little hand for more than about 3 minutes before it gets absconded by number 6. I'd probably really enjoy using it, but she loves it, and that keeps her out of my hair for a few minutes, and so I guess that works out well for us both. So there you go. O-Pen Pro as well on special this month. Now, if you'd like to know more about all of these babies, which, you know, vary from lightsaber, and they've got some really clever features, spotlight and floodlight and all of that stuff, and others that are better at, you know, search and rescue, and which one the hell does he carry in his pocket every day? That one, that's in that video that I'll link to up there. And the 2 zombie apocalypse specials, like probable zombie apocalypse, definite zombie apocalypse. Kind of what I'm saying. If you'd like to know more about that, because complexity, like you're assaulted by complexity when you go to Olight's website, and that video is a great way to just cut through the complexity and get to the favourite ones. They also do some knives if you want a utility knife to use camping or bushwalking or just in your shed. Rubato, R-U-B-A-T-O. This is 2. This is 3. Can he pull off a hat trick because of his misspent youth with his non-dominant hand? This is 4. And of the 2, I'd say 3 and 4, particularly nice. 2 a bit pointy for practical use, but it's a personal opinion thing. They're all excellent knives, and they don't cost as much as a frickin' Benchmade folder. So if you're going to put one in a go bag or put one in your car to do various odd jobs out on location, you know, or even just, you know, general work around the shed, you don't feel guilty borderline abusing a knife such as this, because the quality's high, you're unlikely to break it, but you're not going to feel guilty because it cost you $500 kind of thing. So anyway, thank you Olight for sponsoring this video. Sale starts tonight at 8 p.m, finishes tomorrow night at midnight. I'll have links and codes and all of that hoopla in the description. And now back to me sitting on my ass by magic just over there. This is a Kia EV6 dropping a frankly humongous turd right in the centre of the bed. It's about 5 or 6 a.m. at this point. Like, the fire was about 90 minutes in duration, started roughly 5 a.m. The car had been on charge since about 7 p.m. the night before, so probably fully charged by now, and therefore the battery operating at its least stable state. Let's say that is a single-phase 220-volt charger in the picture, because that's exactly what it looks like. We're talking, therefore, about 7 and a bit kilowatts times roughly 10 hours, which is more than enough juice to charge a Kia EV6 battery, even the bigger of the 2, more or less fully from dead flat in that time. Like most Hyundai Kia EVs, that battery is nickel manganese cobalt chemistry, which is not, frankly, a choice made primarily on the grounds of safety, but chosen instead for its energy density, i.e. how much range can we jam into the smallest possible space and least battery weight, because range and energy density are flip sides of the same coin and such an important selling proposition, whereas safety, not so much. It's also the most toxic and the most inclined to thermal runaway at the lowest temperature, that chemistry. So well done there, Hyundai Motor Group. Hashtag priorities. But I'd have to say, they're not alone. Most EVs use this most toxic and most dangerous, least stable chemistry. That gorgeous planet-saving EV6 started off-gassing textbook toxic explosive vapour. And it's pretty safe to say, I think, that dude in the flip-flops hasn't the faintest idea concerning A, the danger he's placing himself in. Well done, government dipshits everywhere in the developed world, apropos of failing to inform the public on this one. And B, that fire extinguisher is kind of like going up against 50 dudes with ARs, nude and carrying a toothpick. These images highlight 6 glaring design and or integration deficiencies that demand urgent countermeasures if we'd all like to avoid living in electric dystopia. Car makers do not prioritise safety in battery design. It's that simple. Like, energy density comes first, everything else is distantly subordinate. The Kia EV6, meaning also the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is the same car essentially with different hair and makeup, uses nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry. And it is there because it crams more energy into the least volume. That battery uses pouch cells, which are kind of lightweight and therefore very space efficient, but not as reliable as conventional cylindrical cells. And they're also quite susceptible to swelling. If you're a car maker, this is quite okay, because 6 or 7 years down the track, these deficiencies are going to be someone else's problem, right? i.e., the owner's problem. Car makers choose the chemistry for the range, not the reliability or the safety. So we're using the most toxic chemistry in the most space-efficient way, but not the most reliable or safe way. So great. Priorities. We're only doing this because there are no regulations to the contrary. This battery, frankly, like many EV batteries, lacks any kind of standardised or well thought out deflagration port. And you might think of this like a safety valve of sorts which blows off in a reliable, repeatable way. If there's a thermal runaway with toxic off-gassing, would it not be impossibly lovely if the gas and or subsequent flames were directed out of the rear of the vehicle, for example, every time in a quote-unquote controlled way, or as controlled as possible? The EV6 Ioniq 5 uses the cover on the bottom of the battery as kind of a de facto deflagration port. The seal can give way anywhere around on 360 degrees of potential freedom, if you like to think about it in those terms, around the car. So how impossibly entertaining to be a firefighter in that environment. It can spray flames sideways and engulf other cars in a parking garage situation, and or it can make things quite difficult or impossible for first responders to rescue persons who might be trapped in the car in the aftermath of a crash. So well done there, nice design choice. Or it might spray flames forwards and prevent people from escaping the building if the car is between them and the exit. So say you're there and that car is parked rear on, the flames are escaping to the front, and the car is between you and the exit. That would suck. This all seems like a massive design oversight to me. Why should mechanical engineers have all of the fun? Here's a civil engineering fail now. We park EVs the same way we park combustion cars, right? In the same spots. And yet it is a scientific and undisputed fact that they burn hotter and longer than conventional cars when they burn. This parking arrangement is therefore absurd, is it not? There is a very real risk that an EV fire will engulf nearby vehicles, and worst case, it's going to destroy every vehicle in the garage and even weaken the reinforced steel in the structure of the building above, causing potentially damages in the tens of millions of dollars. We need fire-rated masonry walls between parked EVs. This makes complete sense to me. And yes, it would require more real estate to park every EV if we did this. EVs need to be parked rear end in against the back wall, with walls on the side and behind, therefore putting them effectively in discrete bays. If we had design regulations mandating rear-facing deflagration ports in vehicles and mandates on parking rear end in and designed in fire-compliant bays with lateral insulation, this would greatly reduce the risk of one EV fire spreading to the nearest 140 cars or something, as it did in South Korea earlier this month. Just imagine that this South Korean fire is taking place in the Sydney Opera House car park, because it or something similar is coming, and I'm sure you can imagine the nauseating political fuckwit diatribe commentary in the aftermath. It would be unwatchable. You know, we did nothing, but we're calling for action now, kind of thing. Reductio ad absurdum. I would respectfully suggest, i.e., with all due respect to politicians, none, to those shot-calling dipshits, that Noah built the ark before the fucking rain. Before the fucking rain. Even though that's an entirely bullshit apocryphal fairy story, it still makes an excellent point about the right time to act in serious, risky situations. Fundamental battery design restricts and limits firefighting efforts. It certainly does in this case. That Hyundai Kia battery pack could not be designed better to hamper the efforts of firefighters if they friggin' tried. Just take a look at it, dude. Firstly, the lack of a standardised deflagration port means the poor fuckers in the SCBA taking care of business on the ground in the fire are always operating kind of shit scared that a torrent of toxic flame is going to erupt straight at them. Wouldn't that not be hilarious? Kind of like Russian roulette, only with a flamethrower. Secondly, and just as serious, like, dude, they've got one of those flat nozzles that sprays up like an industrial spec garden sprinkler kind of thing under the car, right? They're irrigating the underside of the battery in an attempt to constrain the temperature, which makes perfect sense. But there's the battery design. From the ground up, there's a metal cover. Then the battery cooling system, which is obviously failing, and then a second metal cover, and only then, you've got to get through all those things, and only then there are the cells. The cells are what is deflagrating here, but there are three very serious barriers between the firefighting effort and the thing they're actually trying to keep cool. And what other alternative do they have in the circumstances? There are obviously reasons why they've designed the battery this way, but fighting a fire in the worst case scenario with the lives of maybe dozens of people and tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure worth of damage really on the line here, it could go either way. That's really not one of the design objectives, is it? I get that they need to protect the cells from minor impact as you drive along, or even moderate impact as you drive along. Absolutely, design consideration. I get that the cooling system is going to work better with close proximity to forced convection, like airflow under the car, so yay, approved on that basis. But there has to be a better way to get as much water as possible right into the guts of the battery where the problem is when the chips are down. Do you not agree? Am I reading this wrong? In the military, you just put a giant 4-inch or something quick coupler on each side of the car with the word fire emblazoned on top in 6-inch high letters or something, and you'd get plumbing that went straight down into the battery's guts for the water, right? Probably wouldn't play that well in the marketing department for a planet-saving EV, however. In this case, they've done a sensational job in Namyang, insulating the fire from all conceivable rational effort to suppress it. So, well done. Charging an EV in an underground car park is absurd. Eventually, I predict insurance companies will outlaw this practice and/or make non-compliant buildings uninsurable. Kind of an emerging free market solution there, but what do we do in the meantime, right? In the meantime, I'd suggest every EV in an underground car park houses a toxic canister weighing several hundred kilos. If it weren't part of the car, you'd probably need hazmat certification just to transport it. Charging it is the most dangerous thing you can do to that toxic canister in normal use, except of course for crashing it or modifying it or letting it age somewhat disgracefully. So let's put those toxic canisters, which easily overheat at just 150 or 200 degrees C, which is less than the auto-ignition temperature of paper, and which, if overheated, decomposes into toxic explosive vapour and provides its own oxygen gas, making conventional firefighting methodologies impossible, unworkable. Let's put all of that deep in underground car parks. And while we're down there, so to speak, let's excite that chemistry by pumping energy into it, making it A, even less stable, and B, more likely to overheat if any one of a dozen things goes wrong. For example, a cell develops a dendrite over its life and shorts internally. A high resistance joint causes temperature spikes somewhere relatively unprotected by the cooling system. Or the cooling system fails, or, personal favourite, owner hits something seemingly minor out there on the road, but the car goes all right afterwards for a period of time, so they forget all about it, and hours later the battery just cooks off and the car makes it onto the news. Does that sound like a plan? Because that's exactly what we're doing. I'd suggest that EV parking bays underground must be, at the very least, audited for firefighting access, and charging bays need even better systematic protection, preferably placed in open air spaces in non-combustible environments, which is exactly the way liquid fuel bowsers are emplaced, I'd suggest. It might be awfully nice to start educating firefighters properly. This shot basically says it all. This is a dangerous hazmat environment, right? And everyone should be wearing self-contained breathing apparatus and vapor barrier suits. Half of them-ish appear to be wearing what looks to me like P2 filter masks, which would typically be sufficient for welding or grinding or even bushfire smoke, but not all that good for toxic cobalt compounds or other heavy metals and lithium hexafluorophosphate, etc. And exposed skin, dude, also a definite problem. You don't have to breathe this shit, you just have to get it on you. And it's a workplace, right? These people are at work. The toxins from these fires are freaking next level. They really are. Like, all car fires are bad, but these are worse, objectively worse. Just right for an electric dystopian reboot of Erin Brockovich. I also feel for our regional, volunteer firefighters, right? These people might roll up in the middle of nowhere on the scene of an EV fire. A car hits a tree, people are trapped, whatever. And then they'd be faced with potentially the unthinkable moral dichotomy of A, putting themselves at great personal risk by attempting a rescue in the absence of the right PPE, or B, having to stand there and just watch some poor bastard and unthinkably a whole family just burn. Like PTSD, here we come. What's the official advice and training here in Australia? Do you suppose it's actually cutting edge? Who gets SCBA and who doesn't exactly? And who gets trained on that? And why are the authorities seemingly not acknowledging these risks publicly so that we can all be better informed and better protected? Because clearly these risks exist. It's fair to say that South Korea has tilted somewhat on its 38th parallel in the context of these fires over what they actually mean, right? The public is not quite up in arms, but certainly demanding vocally to know which brand of batteries go in which EVs. Exactly. Politicians are arse-covering, as only politicians can, when it comes to light that they've let the public down badly via their inaction. There was some surprise, I'd have to say, and here in the Fat Cave, at least delight, to learn that the symbol of rolling prestige, that is the coveted three-pronged suppository, is there. They used cheap-ass batteries from their in-house Chinese supplier of bargain basement batteries for asses, which sounds like for asses if you're in America, or so I've been told in the comments, and appropriately enough, it seems. For asses, which has a history of dodgy design and fire risk recalls for its batteries. So a perfect match with Satan's official car maker, I'd suggest. perfect match for Germany's shuriken suppository. But just knowing who uses cheap, unstable shitbox batteries is probably not sufficient. We need also to advance battery management systems to have them equipped with more sophisticated and early warnings. That's Professor Kim Jong-hoon from Chungnam National University. His area of expertise is EV management systems. And what he's saying, it appears to me, is that battery management systems in current EVs are inadequate in terms of preventing the worst-case risks. And kindly don't deride South Korean applied scientists either. They're a more advanced country than Australia. This is objectively a fact. They do more R&D, they make more stuff, they qualify more academics, and those academics are first rate. Maybe not as creative as Western academics, but when it comes to the science, they're on it, dude. Capital E, capital V evangelists absolutely hate this kind of informed comment too, because it's easy to label me as an EV hater or a battery hater. In fact, I'm neither of those things. I'm just kind of pro-safety, and there are deficiencies in how they're being deployed, and I love pointing that out. But it's hard to label respected academics in the same way, or at least you have to weaponize your epistemology even further, break the epistemology of reality to do so. Batteries are essential to our society, to our civilization, but we need to get them right, especially the deployment of the big ones. Moon Hack Hoon, another potentially bitchin' Aussie name. Anything with hoon in it, dude, like respect. Moon Hack Hoon, professor of automotive engineering at Osan University, said simply requiring car companies to provide the make of an EV battery would not prevent fires. But what would be more helpful is to certify the fire hazards of each battery brand. Reuters there, quoting another respected academic who seems to be implying that some batteries are more dangerous than others, but only insiders currently know which ones they are. Wouldn't that be impossibly entertaining if we did that? Perhaps organisations like ANCAP might give EVs a little Lucifer star rating. Zero Devils being the best or something. A Dante's Inferno rating, perhaps. South Korea, like many markets, is already experiencing a bit of poop in the trousers as far as EV sales this year are concerned. We're a bit behind them in so many respects, including this one. In my view, our EV crash/correction won't happen for the next 1 to 2 years kind of thing. But it's certainly coming as the novelty of recent government incentivisation wears off and the reality of insurance and depreciation, repair costs, reliability and charging infrastructure continues to knee early adopters fair in the cashews. The domestic EV market in South Korea is in desperate need of a rebound. According to automotive market tracker Car Is You, EV sales in South Korea from January to July this year totaled 80,613. Down 13.4% from the same period last year. Yonhap News there, and it's fair to say, I think, that these fires will almost certainly not help spur EV enthusiasm along in South Korean society. I'd like to think, however, that they might help us here in Shitsville better to prepare for the eventual 25% of vehicles becoming electrified in coming decades. But I'm not hopeful that this will occur at all until we have a few deaths and a lot of damage locally, and it almost certainly will happen. But until then, the Albos and Bowens of this world will continue to indulge the fantasy that electric utopia will just emerge organically around us, with them continuing to do predictably enough sweet Foxtrot Alpha.